Welcome and join your
What's
blended
up?
family. We are so excited today. And we just want to give you a word of caution that this is probably not one for the little ears. So if you got your kids listening, they may not, want to hear this, or it might be good for them. I don't know. So, it depends. I will let you be the judge of that. But today we're talking about initiating sex in your marriage. And how big of a deal is that? But before we really dive into that, because this is such a hot topic, especially in blended families, we have to really work hard to keep our marriage strong. We have so many challenges and things coming at us. And so being able to keep our marriage and relationship thriving in intimacy and sex the way that we need to keep our marriage healthy, we got to be really intentional. So we've got a special guest with us here today, Dan Purcell from Get Your Marriage On. So we're so excited. He runs a business, and this is all about bringing tools to make sex fun and exciting for your marriage. They have all different things, games, apps, podcasts, courses, all kinds of cool things that can help strengthen and keep your marriage fun. And they do it in an amazing way. They do it in a Christian way. They keep God in the center of it. So it's such an amazing thing. So Dan, welcome. We are excited. How are you doing today?
Really good. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. And so, Dan, we connected with you through The Average Daters was doing an interview with you. And I was like, oh, man, we've got to get him on for our listeners. This is just one of those topics, like Randall was saying, that's just so valuable, especially in a second marriage, because although you're not a blended family, but strengthening the marriage, it's just one of those things that can make or break those relationships. So we did an Instagram live. We talked, we got some questions out, more of like your basic stuff. We got to hear a lot of the things that Get Your Marriage On has as like products to help in this area. So we may dig a little more deeper into that here. But today our focus is on this topic of initiating sex. But before we get into the good
fun
stuff, the juicy stuff, tell us a little bit about, we like to ask the question, what is your family dynamics? Because I think it's important for them to hear like what season of life you're in, how long you've been married, how many kids you have, especially when it comes to your sex life. A lot of that is hindered. I don't know if that's what you would call, but on the age of your kids and the length of your marriage and the different things that can come and involved in that. So tell us a little bit about your family.
Yep. My wife, Emily, and I've been married for almost 19 years. We met in middle school. We've known each other since middle school. We're on the same bus route. So sometimes I sit by her. I was really shy as a kid and she was really cute. So I was always like really nervous around her. But our oldest, we have 6 children. My oldest is 17 and my youngest is 5, and it alternates boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. So,
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Took a lot of practice, but we got it nailed down. So.
Yeah, worked really hard on getting the order.
Yes, we did.
This time boy, this time girl. Let's make this happen. We'll have to talk about that one later. How did that work?
Yeah. Let's see. So I've been an entrepreneur pretty much our entire marriage, and right out of college, I just had this great idea. I wanted to own a business, and my degree's in computer science. So I've kind of got a technical background. My day job was being a software engineer. And at night, I just loved building websites. So that's kind of where it started, and just built websites for other people. So early on in our marriage, I kind of established this pattern of me always working. So I would work full-time job, come home, dinner time, family time. My wife would crash because she's so tired with the kids all day. And I'd be up till midnight with all these ideas. And it was quiet. It was my time without interruptions. And I valued that time. Then I'd wake up early before everyone else, and I'd be on the computer working. And I was kind of like working 2 jobs. But it didn't feel like 2 jobs. There's just things I loved and enjoyed.
Yes.
So you worked okay with lack of sleep then?
I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't claim that as like, I'm not saying that's good and healthy.
But it worked for you in that time.
Yeah,
it did. And when you're young, you can kind of get by with less sleep.
That's true.
But so for 12 or so years, this is my pattern, just working a lot. Now, I usually wouldn't, I for sure would, like Sunday was, I won't work on Sundays. And Saturdays, I avoid the office if I can, just take care of things at home and just try to keep family time. But it really wasn't until just after our 13th anniversary, there was an event that happened in my life. I had a conversation with a friend. And sorry, let me back up one more thing. My wife and I both come from really good families. Both of our parents are good role models in their marriages too. But like most conservative Christian families, the topic of sex was never openly discussed. And if it was in reproductive biology or the thou shalt not conversation, but not the not how to build a great and exciting sex life, like how to do it well. Like that was completely missing from our education. And there was a lot of anxiety about sex that we both inherited, unknowns to us, that we brought into our marriage too. So a little after my 13th anniversary, I'm having lunch with a friend, and he opens up to me about his sex life. And I was totally like blushing, embarrassed, but it was morbid curiosity. It's like, oh, don't tell me. Wait, tell me more. No, don't tell me. I want to know more.
I want to know.
He was telling me about like these things he and his wife were doing in bed. Like, really? People actually do that? And like they were playing games in the bedroom. Like, really? That's a thing? Like, I guess I lived under a rock, but it was like really, like people actually do this. This is okay. That was my biggest shock. Like, this is okay to do, because I wouldn't even Google my sex questions because I'm afraid it's going to come up. I didn't want anything salacious or, and we won't watch movies that were kind of off color or anything like that. It's just not us.
Yeah.
And so I had this friend talk about how amazing their marriage has become because they've both really worked on their sex life. And it's telling me that these websites, they have like sex position, stick figure drawings, so you can get, ideas on how to be more creative. Like, really? That's okay. There's things like that. And I don't know.
Opened up a whole new world for
exactly. It totally did. So I go home that night to my wife, like, hey, you'd never believe this conversation I had. But I was really self-conscious. Like, am I a good enough lover? Because that was kind of the conversation. Is like his wife came to him saying, pretty much, you're not taking care of me in bed. You need to up your game. And he was a bit guarded about that. He didn't want to hear that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not a good enough lover. And my wife just hasn't told me. So like, am I enough lover? Like, are you getting taken care of in bed? Like, what do you think about this and this and this? Like, is this okay for us? What are these things? So really, like, probably for the first time in a marriage, that point had the most deepest, most intimate, raw conversation about our sexual relationship ever. And that led to other conversations, and we're up to late at night talking about like, how are we doing? What do you think about these things and whatever? And through all that, I learned how important it is to my wife that I am available for her just to be there. And my working at night pattern, which has been my pattern, was so invisible to me that it was actually not helping our marriage. It was kind of hurting our marriage.
Wow.
So it was kind of fun. Like, so in a short amount of time, this magical 2-month period of our marriage, like we both really like were able to like really take off the mask, really go layer to layer to layer to really get to the heart of intimacy for us, like what's really important for us. And back to the work conversation, I learned how to like structure my day better. So I'd be more available at nights. After the kids go to bed, I stopped the work habit, and now I'm more available to be with Emily. And it was a great magical time in our marriage too, because now that we're learning about sex, we're reading books about sex, podcasts about sex, we're just really working on improving our sex life. We just dedicated more time for each other. So our marriages started to really take off. And it's like those Twitter-pated feelings we had early on when we were married, or before we were married, just those dating times, those all came flooding back in full force. And like the little tiny things, I used to like write little notes to my wife and hide them around the house or like in her car. Like, but I had probably haven't done that in 13 years. I had forgotten about all those things. And now I'm like remembering with all these emotions coming back, like how to be romantic and how to really like get creative and expressing love and appreciation. So all those things came flooding back in full force. And our marriage just went from good to like, holy smokes, this is great. And of course, sexually, we're getting a lot more pleasure and enjoyment out of it. It's turned into something we both really look forward to, and a time to really be creative together and to really express not just love, but it's also like a time for play for us. And so that's kind of how I don't know, it's like I tasted the fruit and it was good. I want to tell everyone about it. And
Yes.
with my background in software, that's where it became natural for me to want to, well, let's build an app for this. And at the time, we looked online and all the apps about sex or bedroom games, they're all kind of crass and raunchy, like they came out of Las Vegas. So we're like, no, we don't want that. Let's do something more classy, kind of more fits in line with our values. So that's how our apps were born. And anyway, since then, we've put on marriage conferences. We've gotten into coaching and learning how to coach with certifications. So we're coaching other couples. We started our podcast, and I don't know, anything and everything to do with like strengthening marriages intimately is like something we love doing now.
And y'all do such a great job with it. And I love hearing that story because it all started from a conversation, and
Yes.
you're so right that we're not taught how to have a good sex life with our partner. That's not in the school. Schools aren't teaching us that. Our parents aren't teaching us that. So how are we supposed to know that, right? And so it leads that to where, as you say, our marriage, it's great up front initially. We got all the chemistry going. It's, ooh, I like you, and ooh, I like you, and you look good. And we got all the new things that we're doing together, the spice, and then we get married, and then we have the kids, and everything starts fizzling out slowly but surely. And then you get hit on autopilot, and your marriage is just kind of coasting. And I love that just a conversation like that started something different in the two of you that said, hey, we can talk about this. Let's discover this together. Let's see where this takes us. We can start having more fun in this. And I love how you said that by doing that, it increased y'all's intimacy level. It increased your marriage. And now, I mean, look at where it took you, is now you have such a passion and a drive for this to share this with other couples. Such a great, man, I tell you, I love what you're doing, and I love hearing that story because it inspires us as a married couple. We were kind of the same way in our marriage. We were kind of on that cruise control for a while, and it wasn't until we started doing things like little sex challenges and things like that it's not just about the sex, but it's about the intimacy and really asking questions and going a little deeper on likes and feelings and things of that we didn't know how to ask. So I was using these other resources to help really guide us in that. And like you said, it was like, we can do this. What? That's a thing? Like, it's okay. And being a Christian, we can talk about this. So it was just, it was changing, life changing for our marriage. And, like you said, it takes you from good to great, and so cool. So love hearing that. Love what you're doing, man. I can't stress it enough. But kind of diving into our topic. So initiating sex is such a big deal in marriage, such a big deal that, it's easy for us to maybe want the other to engage and they don't, and so no one ever engages. And what does that look like, and how can we do more of that? How can we have fun, spice it up? But kind of get into let's start out, like, who usually initiates sex in marriage? Who do you normally see as the initiator?
Yeah, in most marriages, like we did this poll on our Instagram, if I remember the numbers correctly, like 67% of the time, it's one spouse doing all the initiating. So it's, if you're in a marriage where you feel like, I'm always the one initiating, well, about 2/3 of other couples are in the same boat.
But it wasn't mostly men or mostly women. It was just in the relationship, one was usually the one that.
Right. And it's, I guess, in the beginning, I've always thought, oh, men want sex more than women do. But
that's what we hear all the time, right?
Yeah, but the more I do this work, it's not that case. Like in every marriage, yes, you'll always have one with more desire than another. Just like you have a spouse that wants more to spend more than the other, or more wants to save more than the other. You're always going to have a little bit of a difference. Sometimes the difference is big when it comes to sex, but usually the one with more sexual desire is doing the initiating. But there are some marriages where those with the big higher desire was so fed up initiating and getting rejected, they stopped initiating altogether. And all that pressure got shifted to the lower desire spouse. And the only time sex happens is if the lower desire spouse initiates. So you're back to the same boat where it's only one person initiating.
But then you're probably seeing less and less sex happening in your marriage when it goes to that point, right?
I can
Right.
definitely see that and relate, like just even in our own marriage, because I went through like a health thing that caused where I just didn't have that desire. And so I stopped even initiating it. And we could go weeks, months, like at times. And I think in our marriage, it fluctuates. Who is that initiator? So why do you think it's so difficult though? Like, why aren't couples initiating more? Because, and I say this to them all the time afterwards, I'm like, we need to do that every day. But I don't know why
It's
we
so good.
don't.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Right. I think there's lots of reasons why. And so here's three that come to mind. One is it's intimate, and intimate things are scary. So intimacy is not a euphemism for sex, like a lot of
Right.
Christians we say. Right?
I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah, let's be intimate. No, I'm talking about intimacy as in really knowing each other and allowing someone to know you. It's exposing. It's like
Getting vulnerable.
yes, getting vulnerable, like opening your heart to someone and letting someone that it's like last winter I went skiing with my son. So we're on a ski lift and we're going up the ski lift with another person on our same lift. And you never see this person again. So it's so easy to have a conversation about someone, about things they'd probably never tell their spouse because you say bye at the top of the hill and you ski down, right?
You find out that they come start working at your company the next day.
Oh, right. And it's like, oh, right. Oh, it was you. Right? It's so funny. But when it's something that matters a lot to you, we tend to get a little more guarded because there's this like, it's like this, you need to find this balance between safety and, individual expression. And sometimes they contradict each other. So some couples gravitate way too far on the safety side at the expense of intimacy. So it's hard to have an intimate relationship when you're afraid of rejection. Like, I'm going to get rejected.
Yeah.
So it's because of that, it's hard to initiate. So you always like, I kind of want to, it'd be great to, but I can also get by without it. So never mind, I'm not going to initiate tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it, what's going on is I really don't want to open my heart to saying, I want you sexually with it. And then having it not go through would be heartbreaking. So I'll just deal with it and not bring up my desires. So that kind of you do that too long and that kind of becomes like an avoidance pattern in your marriage, and that affects intimacy. Another is just desire patterns, desire styles. So researchers, this got really famous in the book Come As You Are by Dr. Emily Nagoski. It's an excellent sex book if you're looking for something that's really research-based. And she talks about a lot of these studies done on people where you kind of fall into one of these two groups, essentially. You have the spontaneous and the responsive desire. Spontaneous is like what you see the Hollywood model of sexual desire. It's like you look at each other and you start panting and then you rip off each other's clothes because both of you just can't stand another moment not being together. Like you got to jump each other's bones. It's that like spontaneous desire.
Yes.
I experience a lot of spontaneous desire. That's my pattern. So like when I see my wife step out of the shower, my body, interprets those visual cues and instantly my body reacts and I am excited, right? Like I'm spontaneous.
Hey, honey.
I can go now. Yeah. But when I step out of the shower and my wife sees me, for some reason, it doesn't have the same pattern effect on her.
You're even trying. You're standing out of the shower going, honey.
I know, right? Even if I have a six-pack abs and sculpted biceps and everything, I work out. Like, no, it doesn't have the same effect on her. And there's nothing wrong. Yeah. I remember early in my marriage, I was so frustrated because I wanted sex all the time, and we'd have a great sexual experience. And the next day, I'm just so eager to have that again. Don't you just think all day how wonderful that was? Don't you want it again? And she was dead honest. She's like, actually, I haven't thought about it. I mean, you're right. It was great, but I just don't go around thinking about it. So I thought something was so wrong with her, but she's not wrong. In fact, she's actually perfectly normal. And I'm the abnormal one for thinking that she should think that way because she's more on the responsive style. Responsive is more like you don't think about it until you're already engaged in something then you go, oh yeah, I like this. For example, ever get so
Yeah.
caught up on something, you forget about eating, you forget that you're even hungry because you're so focused on it. And then someone brings you a plate of food, you take a bite, you're like, holy cow, this tastes good. I forgot that I was hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it can explain. That's what responsive sexual desire is more like, where you don't feel desire for sex until there's already something sexually, contextually going on, or some arousal first,
Yeah.
and then you do that. So if you are in a marriage where you depend on the more responsive desire spouse person to do the initiating, you'll be waiting a long time, because by responsive people don't feel that spark internally, naturally, easily, like a spontaneous person would to initiate sex.
Yeah.
So if you're more the responsive, it's not a curse. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a blessing, actually, to be more responsive. There's a lot of advantages to it. You just sometimes need to be more conscious about it. For example, I like to run most of the time. There's sometimes I don't like to go running.
Not in this heat, but yeah.
Exactly. When it's hot or when I'm tired or whatever. But I know that if I put on my shoes and my running clothes, just get out of the house and start moving my body in that direction, afterwards I'll feel like, oh, my body loosens up. This feels great. And after the run, I'm like, I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah.
Because I know once I start, then I'll be in the mood later.
Yeah.
Sex is the same way. Like, if you're more responsive, like, I know I just need to like get going, like use your mind to get yourself moving in that direction, and then you'll know desire will show up later. So
Yeah.
you can be more conscious of it
Yeah.
for that. So I think those are reasons why I think couples struggle with it. It's the intimacy factor with initiating sex. And also, if you're more responsive, of course you're going to struggle initiating, because it's just not your normal way of operating.
Well, and I love how you have presented that. It's almost like we all have different personalities, so we're all kind of different and unique, even as married couples. But you never think of it in a sex format. Like, you have a sex personality as well, right? So
Yes. Yeah.
It's kind of like you both have different sex drives and the way that you approach it. And that doesn't mean that either one of you is wrong. It's just you have to learn how to work together with that. And being able to, if you are more that responsive, knowing that and saying, okay, well, I can do some things here that can help me, as you say, put on my running shoes and go out there and then get the benefits from it. And same with being spontaneous as well. Maybe I need to tame down a little bit and be a little more respectful.
And I was gonna say, I remember, just because our listeners are mostly blended families, and so there's a lot of things you bring that baggage in with you. And so I remember early on in our marriage that I was at work crying to the teachers in the teachers lounge about the fact that I felt like he didn't desire me. Like, I wanted to walk in a room and feel like he just couldn't help himself type thing. And I was the one that usually had to initiate. And if I didn't, then I felt like we didn't. And so I remember crying about it and someone saying, well, have you talked to him about it? And I'm like, no, because that's just,
that's what the teachers lounge is for.
Yes, that's what's happening in teachers lounges, people. But so I finally did come home and say something. I remember us having a conversation and telling him like how I felt. And like that day, I just thought that I looked good for whatever reason. And I felt like he was going to compliment me, and he didn't compliment me. And so I bring this to his attention, and he tells me, just in his past and stuff from his relationship before, he had felt like he had got rejected so many times. Like, we didn't talk about this beforehand, so I don't know. He's like, what stories are you telling on me? But
hey, I'm an open book.
That's why we listen to this podcast, right?
But he had went through that season of initiating and feeling rejected so much. So he told me like, well, I just don't I don't want to be rejected in that way. Just know that I always want to have sex with you. So when you want it, let me know. So it was just this disconnect that we had there, where he was just waiting for me to initiate, and I was desiring him to want to have that Hollywood encounter, and it wasn't happening. And it wasn't that anything was wrong with us. We just had never communicated about it. So I love what you're saying there. And it just helps just bring that truth to it, especially in blended families, when we have that baggage and that history with our previous relationships, like how to clear the air in these conversations.
Yeah, no, it really is. And you don't, those are things that you don't think about, just kind of your past, and kind of like in your first marriage, you don't know to talk about any of these things. And in blended families, we already have a kind of the way things have been, and you might have trained yourself one way, and that's not how your spouse operates. So yeah,
Yes.
just that communication. So have you had any struggles in your marriage around initiating sex? And
Hey, B fam, we'll be back in just a minute. Check this out.
so Scarlett, what's your favorite thing about summer?
If I had to pick just one thing, I'd say having fun with my family. I feel like summer is the easiest time to go on new adventures. We laugh more together, create more memories, stuff like that. What about you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Me too. I love the beach, family hangouts, barbecuing outside. I can smell it. Hanging out by the pool. It's crazy because it always seems that everyone gets along so much better when we're doing things we all like doing.
I agree. That's exactly why we created Enjoy the Journey.
For sure. We found out that having fun together as a family gives you that joy-filled home that brings healing and keeps your family healthy, both mentally and physically. Then we lean on what God says in Proverbs 17:22, that a joyful, cheerful heart brings healing to both body and soul. But the one whose heart is crushed struggles with sickness and depression. We found that when our family is having more fun together, all the blended family challenges weren't near as bad. Our family becomes stronger, healthier. So we try to create more of those opportunities, which led us to create Enjoy the Journey. This is a new way that guides your family through finding more things your family enjoys doing together.
It really does. And it's so easy to do. I think the great thing about it is that it helps you find more family things that you like doing, but it also guides you through finding more fun things for your marriage, more fun things for each one of your kids, and it's especially helpful for the step-parent relationships. It really shows you that the more fun you have, the less problems you'll see.
It walks your family through finding more things you like doing in a fun way, and it sets you up to walk away with a great plan that your family will love. So no matter how long you've been a blended family, this meets you where you're at. It really is a fun journey that your family will be so glad you went on. So check it out. The link is in the show notes, and let your family enjoy the journey today. Now back to this episode.
Oh no, never.
No? Okay. Well, that's okay. In the podcast.
No. Yeah, that would not be truthful at all. No, we have lots. I mentioned that one about just realizing responsive, like,
Yeah.
oh, of course,
Yeah.
doesn't cross her mind like I do. So that was helpful.
Yeah.
Another is there's a season in our marriage where I would initiate, but the sex I was offering isn't good sex. So it was for good reason she was saying no to it.
Okay.
Like it's wise to turn down bad sex, right? You don't want to engage in
Is that a proverb?
It should be.
Turn down bad sex.
It's in chapter 32 of Proverbs.
I love that.
Anyway, I like, oh man, I hope it's okay to share this story, but I remember we were my wife and I were at a conference, and we were just having a great time at the conference together, but we were also busy because it kind of had a busy schedule. And we were getting ready in the morning, and we're getting ready together, and I was in the mood, like, this looks great.
Yeah.
Let's do it now. And I initiated, and she turned me down. But it wouldn't have been a good experience for her, because in her mind, she's like, we only have a few minutes to get ready. We got to be someplace, and if we're on a schedule, it's not like we have time to really enjoy this.
Yeah.
So if we were going to do it, it wouldn't be very a sexually pleasurable experience for me too. It wouldn't be great for us.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's good that she turned that down. So I'm grateful that she turned me down, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have really thought more about, is the sex I'm offering good sex?
Yeah.
Because some couples, they're frustrated. Like, this is another scenario where let's say initiating sex is kind of a pain point in your marriage. You feel like you're constantly rejected. people tend to, out of self-preservation, I don't know why, but they will purposely pick bad times to initiate sex subconsciously, so that at least they can say, see, you're the problem. You're always turning me down. But they don't want to be really vulnerable and open and own that they're offering bad sex. They want to make the other person's problem. So that's a dynamic you see in a lot of marriages too. So, so you got to learn how to offer good sex.
Yeah. Well, and when I hear when you're saying that, because I think Hollywood does do such a job of distorting what good should look like. And I know like a lot of things that you watch on TV, and then you're trying to play that out or act that out in your own marriage. And the female body is not created in a way unless you really have been worked up into, beforehand, they've really put in the
work. A lot of
arousal. Yes, ahead of time to get there. Your body just doesn't react to it. And then you feel self-conscious about like, my body should enjoy that. Why doesn't my body enjoy that? So you just pretend like it does. But then I think that's part of the reason, like, okay, well, I don't want to do that again, but I know I'm supposed to type. Does that,
yeah,
hear?
No, yeah, definitely. And that, it goes both ways. You're talking bad sex, and it's really that one-sided sex, right? It's to where it's all your pleasure and not your partner's not gaining or really getting that pleasure as well. And you're not having that mutual connection, that mutual sexual interaction. So it's being able, I love how you said that you were, that was a teaching moment for you, because you kind of recognized that, to whereas some people could get offended. Some people would have been like, oh, really? Oh, you don't want to do it? I want it now. And if you're not going to give it to me now, you must not love me.
or guilt trips or control, sulk, withdraw. There's so many ways. Like,
really try to play that out, and then make them look like they're the bad guy, and then even to the point of making them feel like they're the bad guy. Like, oh man, am I? So it's more of that manipulative thing that we could use. But you use such wisdom in those moments to where it's like, no, this is, she's right. This isn't going to be beneficial for her. And if she's not being ultimately, if you're both not being if you're not pleasuring her, then I failed at my job, and vice versa. So it should be that mutual connection that we're having. And if we can't have it in that moment, it's not worth having. Like you said, it's bad sex. So I love that you were able to use that as a teaching moment for you and not go the other way, which, we all can have that tendency to be really selfish and just, looking after our own desires.
So were there things that you did to overcome that, like, so that you were making sure you were offering better sex?
Yeah, there's a lot to that too. I did want to mention there is room for quickies. Like, it's okay. It's okay to have sex that's all one-sided once in a while. And it's,
as long as everybody's on board and like, this
and you can have fun with quickies, especially when you're at conferences on vacation or whatever. You can have so much fun with that.
Yes.
So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the sex I was offering at the moment was not good sex. That's the point. Okay. And it can happen. It can happen like the way if the way I was doing sex, if the way I offered sex was painful for her or degrading for her, like those are all also fall in that category. Say no to bad sex, because that's not going to build your marriage.
Yeah, that's good.
So you get good at offering good sex. And that's another episode of its own, I'm sure. We could really dive into that. But it really, I think, comes down to connection and pleasure. I think those are the two things that really, if you're to boil it down to that, would be, are we connecting through this? And is it pleasurable for us? Because I think that's why we have sex.
Yeah. So what are some tips to ease initiating sex in marriage? Kind of make it easier.
Yeah. One is, get better at owning your desires. So I want you, I find you beautiful. I'd like to do this with you. Another is, I love this idea that for a lot of people who are more on the initiating side, usually the higher desire spouse, they will think about foreplay, or they'll start putting on the moves right before they want sex. So like, they're not really paying attention to their spouse until they're interested in sex, right? So they won't worry about kissing or holding hands or being romantic until they're interested in sex. So if you can change your paradigm to no, foreplay is something that happens all day, all the time. And foreplay meaning like foreplay is about connection, creating connection. So the moment your last sexual encounter ended is when foreplay begins, leading to your next one. So
I like that perspective.
Yeah, can you stay connected? Can you stay flirty? Can you stay open to each other? Can you be still reaching out like with your heart? And it doesn't mean you're overtly sexual or sending explicit messages to each other. That's not what I mean all the time. I mean, if you want to do that, that's okay. But it's really about like, hey, I think you're great, or I love you, I appreciate it. It's this like continually building, and it's all the little things. So when you have this atmosphere, what you want to do is elevate your marriage to a place where you're kind of at Laura Brotherson, a sex therapist, says it this way. A car goes from 0 to 60 in a certain period of time. A lot of marriages 60 is like sex. That's where we're engaging sexually. A lot of marriages are operating in the 0 to 20 range. What you want to do is live life in like the 20 to 40 range, so that you can jump up to the 60 easier. There's less of a jump there.
Yeah.
So can you live kind of in this playful area? There's a lot of,
can you live
validation,
in the 20, 40 range?
Yes, exactly. Playfulness and flirting and connection. And I think I'd call this connection. If you can keep some sort of connection throughout, then you can jump to the 60. Then initiating is a lot more natural.
Yeah. Oh, I love that analogy too. That's man, such a great analogy. Can you live in the 20 to 40? That should be a saying.
Sort of like that's our motto here, enjoying your blended family, is to just enjoy the life that you have been given and blessed with by God. And a big part of that is your marriage, and to have fun and be playful. And if you're able to do that on a regular day-to-day basis, then it is so much easier to get to that next level. But if you're living in that problem-focused mindset and you're always just on like, raising the kids and getting them to and from, and you're just in this business partner process of just living together and just doing life, and you're not having fun, then I can see it's so much work to get there. And then for that person that is more of the responder, they're needing a lot more to get them to that point. So someone comes up and wants to start initiating and get there quick. It is kind of a turn off, because you're like, do you know what I've been doing all day? Do you know what I've been dealing with all day? Do you even care where, I've been all day type mentality. So man, I love that, living in that 20 to 40.
Live in the 20 to 40.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and I did just want to point out, because we haven't really talked about it, but that app that you have is such a good tool to use. I didn't know if you were going to mention it, but I'll mention it since you did it. But it's such a good tool to use because it asks those questions. It allows, there's parts in the app that, can you just tell them just a little bit about it? I know we don't have the time to just go into all the details, but highlight some of those things that they can do in the app to just bring out that.
The app is called Intimately Us, and it's free. You can download it on both Android and iPhone. And I think the part you're talking about is the daily intimacy challenge, where every day gives you a challenge. And it's usually something that takes 5 minutes or less. And it's a prompt. And even if you don't complete the challenge, just the idea of always thinking, what can we do to create this playful, happy, like marriage in that 20 to 40 range?
Yeah. I love that.
There might be little things like, with a dry erase marker, you can write a note on your mirror, on this, if you share a bathroom, like on her side of the bathroom or his side of the bathroom. You can, if you're into like hiding notes, and there's a lot of things like that, but there's like massages, there's hundreds and hundreds of prompts.
Well, I love it, because if you're not creative, like this gives you, because a lot of people be like, well, I'm not creative like that, or I'm not romantic like that. This gives you the ideas. You don't have to be romantic or creative. All you have to do is just follow through.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah. And they're easy to do. So,
yes. And it'll keep you in the 20-40 range.
Yeah,
it's like, it's an easy way to do this. There's an app for everything, y'all.
Right.
So do you have any other things that you have that you've been working on or creating, any new things, or that you have right now with Get Your Marriage On that you can share with our listeners?
Sure. Besides the app Intimately Us, we have another app called Just Between Us, and it's a chat app for couples. It's double encrypted, end-to-end encryption. For us tech nerds, that means no intermediary can
Jump
read
in,
any
or
of your messages. Right.
nobody
You
can
can
see your stuff.
Exactly. You can send photos, videos, and messages to each other. But what makes it different than everything else is when you open the app, it only lets you connect with one other person only.
Love that.
And you password protect the app. So there's absolutely no way you can send a unintended message to someone else, someone unintended, like an intimate message to someone unintended. That won't happen.
Or like if your
Sorry,
kids-
Grandma.
If your kids are using your phone and they open it up to
Yes.
go text dad and they see, oh,
Exactly.
Oh,
Anyway,
good stuff.
we kind of make the app kind of fun and flirty because there's a few hidden, we call them Easter eggs, like certain emojis do certain things in the app.
Nice.
We have some built-in, this is great for initiating sex, our topic today, because there's built-in like pickup lines that you can like hit a button and it'll send like a graphic with the message. There's about 100 of them in there you can choose from.
Love it.
It's got it just has lots of other tools. So
Yeah,
I think that's a
I'll have to
fun
check
way to
that
stay in communication.
love that.
Mm-hmm.
So creative, man. And this is one of those areas that it can be such a challenge for us because we don't know. And I love that you've got these resources that can kind of help make it easier.
Yes.
and help keep us in that 2040 range. So love that. Well, before we wrap up, do you have any fun, creative ways you could tell us to initiate sex?
Yeah, let me rattle off just a bunch, rapid fire.
Yeah.
One is like turn on some romantic music and go just dance in the kitchen.
Ah, nice.
Oh,
Another, offer to give a massage.
Okay.
it's always a
we
good
don't-
one.
Yeah, it's always good and we don't do it enough.
That's
right?
true. That's true. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's a great YouTube tutorials on how to do a great massage and so on too, if you want to learn how to massage well.
Okay.
Another one is like schedule it. I mean, we make appointments for, to get your hair done, to go see the dentist. Why not like send a appointment reminder? I don't know. If you both use Google Calendar, like my wife and I do, you can like create a calendar invite and send it. And
You can have like it
Add it
coded
to the calendar.
something like we have to check the budget meeting. We're having a budget meeting.
yes, yep, exactly.
I love that.
Even budget meetings are probably the most unsexy meetings that you have, right?
Yeah.
But you can set a timer so every 10 minutes you take a break from budgeting and you play for 10 minutes and then back to budgeting for 10 minutes.
Oh, I would show up for our budget meetings more often if you did that.
I know, right?
Whoa. Get the wheels spinning.
You're right. Yeah. Then this is great. This is a great meeting. We're being very productive.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. A lot of things are getting done.
Yeah. There's like even little things you can do, like clean the bedroom, pick things up. There's something really sexy about walking into a place that's kind of clean and orderly. That's why hotel sex is usually really nice. You're free from distractions and you're in a clean environment.
Oh, that's
So
true. I never thought about
It
it.
could be
that
a
way.
little thing that might go a long way.
Yeah. You put a little mint on the pillow and everything.
Yes. And you can buy like for $5 on Amazon, like a whole thing of like rose petals, and you can sprinkle it on. They come in like silk, so they're like reusable. And anyway, if you're into that,
Love
might be a
that.
fun thing.
Those are some great ideas. I mean, my wheels are spinning, and
Lucky me. Hopefully, listener, you too, your wheels are spinning.
Yes.
But it really is. It's such a awesome thing to be able just to recognize each other and to be able to talk about it, to open up and have those conversations, to really start working through that will just draw that intimacy, and using resources like you put out as well to help keep that going and help us ask the questions that we don't know to ask, and things like that, and do things that we don't even think about doing. So good. Thank you, Dan, just for coming on here and sharing your knowledge and your expertise. And we appreciate it so much.
You're welcome.
And where can we found you on Instagram? Is that where you spend most of your time, or is it the podcast? Where can our listeners find you the most? Yeah,
I'm on Instagram at Get Your Marriage On. And my website is getyourmarriageon.com. And that from there you'll have links to everything. Which
Awesome.
reminds me, I do have a resource. It's called 101 Creative Ways to Initiate Sex. It's available on my website. And you can just go to my website and find it under resources.
But we'll
or-
take that link then
Yeah.
and we'll put it in the show
Great.
notes.
We'll put it in the show notes. So
Yeah, for
there's
sure.
a resource
Okay.
out there.
101
Yeah.
ways to initiate sex.
Creative ways to initiate
Creative
sex.
ways.
Yeah, because we all need help with initiating.
Yes.
Yes.
Being
It makes
creative
us-
just makes it so much more fun.
Yes. Well, thank you so much again. I tell you, every time that we talk, I just love connecting with you, and I love what y'all have done at Get Your Marriage On. It really is. It's one of those that whenever we were, in our marriage, it was around the probably 7-8 year mark that we just kind of hit that lull. And it was finding things like you're doing it, and
Mhm.
that got us out of our shell. We were able to start exploring more in our marriage. We were able to start learning more about each other, asking some of these deeper questions that we didn't know how to ask. And so we really appreciate what you're doing for
Yeah.
marriages out there. And I know our blended family community's taking this and going, okay, app download. I got
Yes. Share this one with the spouse. This is definitely one you want to share.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you again so much, Dan. We appreciate you.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
And enjoying your blended family, I'm telling you, it's an amazing thing when you invest in your marriage. It's an amazing thing whenever you start talking and opening up and getting more intimate, not just sexual, but intimate, but having sex too. You got to have a lot of that because that's just good. And that keeps you together, growing stronger together. So it's a good thing, but it's about being respectful and learning each other and talking more on it, using these amazing resources that are out there. Because as blended families, we have so many things trying to tear us apart sometimes, but this is what's going to keep you together, keep you stronger, and it spills over into your family. So use it. It's there for you. God wants you to have it. So it's an amazing thing. It's a gift. So listen, we love you, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks for joining us today. We hope this episode has been a blessing and encouraged your family journey.
Make sure you stay connected with us and join our weekly Blended Family newsletter. We send an email out every Friday morning full of support and encouragement.
And when you join, we also want to give you a free gift. So go get yours today. The link is in the show notes below.
Have an amazing day. Remember to enjoy the journey with your blended family, and we'll see you on the next episode.